The night smelled like rain and roses in Hollow's Edge, the kind of small mountain town where secrets slept beneath every roof and wolves ruled the hills. The moon was high, pale, distant, watching, as laughter echoed from the great manor at the edge of town. The Hawthorne sisters were celebrating another victory. All except one. At the far end of the ballroom, half hidden behind a curtain of gold light, Clara Hawthorne stood alone, her glass untouched, her dress simple compared to the glittering silks of her sisters. She was the quiet one, the mistake, the human-born daughter of a bloodline of wolves. They called her the weak Hawthorne, and tonight they made sure she didn't forget it. "Don't sulk, little lamb," drawled Lydia, the eldest, sweeping across the floor in crimson silk. "You'll wrinkle your pretty brow." Clara forced a smile. "You look beautiful, Lydia." Lydia's lips curved. "Of course I do." Behind her, Maris, the second sister, laughed, sharp and cruel. "Did you hear, Lydia? Mother says Alpha Row might attend tonight." "Oh, I heard." Lydia's smile sharpened. "And if he does, he'll choose a Luna worthy of him, not one who hides in corners." Their eyes flicked toward Clara like knives. Clara swallowed hard, the heat rising in her chest. "Maybe he won't come." Maris smirked. "He always comes. The moon calls him. Men like him don't hide, little sister. That's for prey." The word hit harder than it should have. "Prey." They turned away laughing, leaving her standing there, her heart thudding in her throat. When the door opened and the air shifted, everyone in the ballroom went still. He had arrived. Alpha Row Vale, the ruler of the Northern Territories, the wolf who'd united 5 rival packs and broken 3 in battle. He stood in the doorway, the light of the chandeliers glinting against his dark coat. His presence filled the room like smoke, silent, heavy, impossible to ignore. He wasn't smiling. He never did. His gaze swept the hall, sharp and assessing. Every woman in the room straightened under it, their sense shifting with hunger and fear. But his eyes stopped only once. Her. Clara froze as his golden gaze met hers across the room. The noise fell away. The music, the laughter, even the whisper of silk. Gone. It was as if the world had narrowed to that single thread of attention, taut and electric. Then, without a word, the Alpha started walking toward her. The crowd parted instinctively. Her sisters stared, their smiles faltering. Clara's pulse thundered in her ears. "He's not." But he was. He stopped in front of her, tall enough to block the light. His scent, pine, rain and smoke, surrounded her, dizzying. "Clara Hawthorne," he said, his voice low, smooth and dangerous. "You've been avoiding me." Her breath caught. "I didn't think you'd notice." He smiled slightly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "I notice everything." Lydia stepped forward, her voice sugar and venom. "Alpha Row, you must be mistaken." Clara rarely. He didn't look at Lydia. "Leave us." The room went silent. Lydia blinked, affronted. "Alpha, she's." "I said leave us." There was no room for argument in that voice. Even the walls seemed to obey. Lydia's jaw clenched, but she curtsied stiffly and backed away. Clara felt every gaze in the room on her as the Alpha's shadow fell over her. "Walk with me," he said. She hesitated. "Now." His mouth curved faintly. "Do you usually tell an Alpha no?" She flushed. "Only when I have reason." He studied her, not offended, just intrigued. "You're different from your sisters." "I'm nothing like them," she said softly. "Good," he said. "That's why I'm here." They stepped out into the cold night, the sound of the river whispering below the cliffs. The sky was deep indigo, the moon sharp as a blade. Rose stopped near the railing, the light catching on the scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. "Do you know why wolves don't trust weakness?" he asked quietly. Clara shook her head. "Because weakness," he said, "isn't real. It's a story people tell when they're afraid of power they can't understand." She frowned. "What power could I possibly have?" He turned to her then, close enough that her breath hitched. "Mine." Her heart stuttered. What? He reached out, brushing a lock of hair from her face, his fingers lingering against her skin. You think I came here for your sisters? For their noise and their perfume? She could barely speak. Then why? Because the first time I saw you, he said. The bond stirred. She went still. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. You feel it too, don't you? The air between them crackled. Her pulse thrummed in her throat, and something deep within her, something ancient and wild, answered him. Yes, she whispered. Rose's gaze darkened. Then there's no need to pretend. He lifted her hand. Her skin glowed faintly where he touched it, silver threads of light curling up her wrist. The mark. Gasps echoed behind them. Her sisters had followed to the balcony, frozen in disbelief. Lydia's voice broke through the silence. No. No, this can't be. Ro didn't look at her. His attention was entirely on Clara. Clara Hawthorne, he said, his voice resonant with power. I mark you as Luna of the North. The light flared, a brilliant silver sigil burning briefly against her skin before fading into warmth. The bond sealed. Clara's knees almost gave out. She could feel him now. His heartbeat, his breath, the steady pulse of strength that ran through him. It wasn't pain. It was belonging. Rose's hand lingered at her jaw, his thumb tracing the edge of her cheek. They'll hate you for it, he murmured. She met his gaze. They already did. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. Pride, even. Then perhaps you'll do fine as my Luna. Lydia's voice trembled behind them. You can't be serious. She's nothing. Ro turned slightly, his expression cold. She's mine. The wind rose, scattering snow like ash. The sisters stepped back, fear replacing scorn. Clara stared at him. The alpha who'd silenced a room for her, who'd seen something in her she never dared believe existed. Why me? She whispered. Rose's gaze softened, just barely. Because when the moon called, only you answered. The town would talk for months. Of the weak Hawthorne daughter, of the night the alpha knelt not before beauty or status, but something rarer. And under the watch of the moon, Clara Hawthorne felt the power that had slept her entire life finally awaken. Not the strength of teeth or blood, but of choice. The bond burned steady and sure. And in that fire, the weak girl everyone mocked was gone. Only the Luna remained. Morning came slow to Hollow's edge, bleeding pale gold through the pines and the frost-covered fields. Smoke rose from the chimneys of the manor where, for the first time in centuries, a Hawthorne daughter had been marked by an alpha. But not the one anyone expected. The house was silent when Clara Hawthorne woke, the kind of silence that isn't peace but warning. She sat on the edge of her bed, her fingers brushing the mark on her wrist. The faint silver glow had faded to a soft shimmer, hidden beneath her skin, but she could still feel it, the echo of Ro Vale's heartbeat pulsing faintly through her own. Bon. It wasn't pain. It wasn't pleasure. It was a presence, constant, alive, watching her even when he wasn't there. And though it terrified her, it also felt like the first real thing she'd ever owned. Downstairs, the whispers had already begun. She bewitched him, someone murmured as she passed the hall. The alpha must have been tricked, another said. It can't be her. She doesn't even shift. Clara ignored them. She'd learned long ago that the more you feed a rumor, the hungrier it gets. But when she turned the corner, her sisters were waiting. Lydia stood by the window, her crimson gown blazing against the pale light. Maris lounged beside her, idly polishing a silver pendant. Good morning, Luna, Lydia said, her smile brittle. Did you sleep well in your new superiority? Clara met her gaze calmly. I slept fine, thank you. Enjoy it while it lasts, Maris said, her tone sweet as poison. Men like him always get bored of soft things. Clara tilted her head. You sound jealous. Maris laughed. Jealous? Of a girl who needed pity to be chosen. Lydia's voice turned sharp. You don't deserve him, Clara. You don't deserve the bond or the title. Clara's pulse quickened, but she held her ground. Then perhaps the moon disagrees. The words silenced them, only for a heartbeat, but it was enough. Lydia's eyes narrowed. "We'll see how long your luck lasts." She swept out of the room, Maris trailing behind like a shadow. Clara exhaled, her hands trembling. She hated how easily their words still cut. But as she turned to leave, she froze. Standing in the doorway was Ro. He leaned against the frame, arms crossed, watching her. His expression was unreadable. "How long have you been there?" she asked. "Long enough." "Then you heard." "I did." She waited for his judgment, but he didn't offer any. Instead he walked toward her, slow, deliberate, each step heavy with quiet power. "When a wolf bares its teeth," he said softly, "it's not always attack. Sometimes it's fear." Clara frowned. "You think they're afraid of me? I know they are." He stopped in front of her, his golden eyes glinting in the light. "They see something they can't name. Weakness doesn't scare them, but power that hides behind gentleness." His mouth curved faintly. "That terrifies them." Her heart stuttered. "I'm not powerful." He tilted his head. "Aren't you?" They left the manor before noon, traveling north through the ridge where the wolves gathered under the Alpha's crest, a great silver sigil carved into the stone cliffs. Clara rode beside him, the cold air biting her cheeks. Below them, the valley stretched wild and endless, a kingdom of pine and mist. "This is your world," she said quietly. "It's ours now," he corrected. She blinked. "You mean mine." "I meant what I said." He glanced at her, a rare flicker of softness breaking through his usual restraint. "The bond makes you Luna in title. But the moon doesn't care for titles. It chose you for more than that." "Why me?" she asked. "I'm not like the others. I don't shift. I don't fight." Ro looked ahead, his jaw tight. "You think strength is teeth and claws. Isn't it?" He smiled faintly. "No. Strength is choosing mercy when the world demands cruelty. That's rarer." Clara studied him in silence, realizing for the first time that beneath his control, the armor, the authority, there was a loneliness he didn't know how to hide. And somehow she understood it. They reached the northern clearing by dusk. Wolves padded through the snow, bowing as Ro dismounted. Clara followed, her steps slow, uncertain. The air shimmered faintly with power. The pack's eyes, hundreds of them, turned toward her. A ripple of unease passed through the circle. Few growls rose. "She's human," someone whispered. "She can't lead us." Clara's throat tightened. She looked to Ro, but he didn't move. Instead he said quietly, "Tell them who you are." Her heart stopped. "What?" "They won't follow me if they won't follow you." "I'm not ready." "You don't get ready," he said. "You become." The crowd waited. The wind howled through the trees. Clara took a slow breath and stepped forward. Her voice shook at first, but then it steadied, like a flame finding its strength. "My name is Clara Hawthorne," she said, meeting their eyes one by one. "And I was born weaker than all of you." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "But weakness," she continued, "taught me to listen when others shouted, to endure when others broke, to rise when others laughed." Silence fell. "I don't have your strength," she said. "But I have something that can't be taken, the will to stand beside you, not above you. If that isn't enough for your respect, then I'll earn it with my hands, not my blood." The words hung in the cold air, sharp and alive. For a long moment no one moved. Then one of the wolves, an older woman with gray in her fur, lowered her head. Then another. Then another. Within seconds, the clearing was filled with the sound of wolves bowing. Ro's gaze didn't leave Clara. The faintest trace of pride flickered behind the gold. "You see," he said quietly. "Not weakness." "Then what?" she whispered. He smiled, small, genuine. "Luna." That night, as the pack feasted beneath the moon, Clara sat beside Ro on the high ledge overlooking the valley. The fire below painted the snow red and gold. "They'll follow you now," he said. "I don't want them to follow," she murmured. "I want them to trust." They will. She looked at him. Do you? Ro turned, the light catching the edge of his scar. I didn't mark you because I trusted you, he said. I marked you because I believed you'd become someone I could. She held his gaze, the silence between them thick with something neither dared name. Do you always sound like that? She asked softly. Like what? Like you're confessing and warning me at the same time. A rare laugh broke from him, low, rough, genuine. Maybe I am. The sound wrapped around her like warmth. And beneath the weight of the stars, Clara Hawthorne, the weak daughter who had been mocked her entire life, realized that the imbalance between them wasn't power or blood. It was the danger of two people trying not to fall in love. The valley was quiet again, too quiet, the kind of quiet that hides danger beneath its breath. Days had passed since Clara Hawthorne stood before the pack and spoke like someone who belonged to the world she'd always been denied. Since then, the wolves of Hollow's Edge had started to bow when she passed, not because she was the Alpha's Luna, but because she had earned it. But with the whispers of respect came new ones, darker ones. Rumors that the bond between her and Ro Vale wasn't blessed by the moon, that it was unnatural, forged by power, not fate, that it would destroy them both. She first heard it from Edda, one of the elder healers. The woman came to her one morning, her hands wrinkled and steady, her eyes sharp as glass. The moon gives signs, Luna. You must learn to read them. Clara smiled politely. I try. Then hear this. Edda leaned close, her voice dropping. When an alpha marks a human, he risks everything. His pack, his mind, even his soul. Clara frowned. But I carry the mark now. The bond is sealed. Sealed, yes, Edda whispered. But not accepted. Not by the moon. She waits to see if your heart can bear the cost. What cost? The woman's gaze flickered. Something like pity, something like warning. When a bond defies fate, one heart must fall for the other to rise. Clara's breath caught. You mean one of us will die? Edda said nothing. She just turned and left, her shawl whispering over the stone floor like a shroud. That night Clara couldn't sleep. The moonlight bled pale through the windows of the Alpha's hall. She lay awake listening to Rose even breathing beside her. His arm draped heavy across her waist. She wanted to wake him to ask if he'd known. But something in his stillness stopped her. Instead, she studied him in the soft glow, the scar cutting through his jaw, the faint furrow in his brow even in sleep. He looked like a man carved from duty, not mercy. Yet in that moment he was just human. The thought scared her more than anything. Because if he was human, then he could be taken from her. And maybe that was the price. At dawn, she found him outside training with the sentries, the air cold and sharp. The snow hadn't melted yet, but the first scent of spring was in it. He turned as she approached, sweat glinting on his throat. You should be resting. I couldn't. He wiped his hands on his cloak. What is it? She hesitated, searching his eyes. Ro, what happens if the bond was never meant to be? His jaw tightened. Who told you that? Edda. He sighed low and dangerous. The elders love their stories. She said the moon hasn't accepted it yet. She will. How can you be sure? He looked at her then, really looked, his golden eyes steady. Because I don't care if she does. Clara blinked. That's blasphemy. Maybe. He stepped closer. But I've lived my whole life by her will. I've killed for her, bled for her, buried every person I've ever loved because of her. I won't lose you too just because the sky says so. Her throat tightened. You can't fight the moon. He smiled, faint and bitter. Then she'll learn I don't kneel easily. Later that day, they rode north to the Ravenspire, where the Council of Alphas gathered once every season. It was supposed to be a simple ceremony, to present Clara as the official Luna of the North. But the moment they entered the council chamber, Clara knew something was wrong. The other Alphas were already waiting. Garan of the Bloodwoods, Sable of the Ash Cliffs, and Marek of the Hollowmount. Their scents filled the air. Musk, smoke, salt. Predators, all of them. Sable was the first to speak. So it's true, she said, her voice smooth as ice. You marked a human. Rose's voice was calm. I marked my Luna. Garan laughed, the sound deep and cruel. A Luna without a shift. Without a pack of her own. You insult the moon, Ro. Merrick leaned forward, his silver eyes gleaming. The bond breaks law. You know the punishment. Rose's jaw flexed. I know what it costs. And I'll pay it before I break it. Sable's smile turned thin. The moon won't wait for you to choose. When she calls, one of you will answer. Clara stepped forward, her voice steady. Then let her ask me herself. All eyes turned to her. Sable's gaze sharpened. You would challenge the moon. No, Clara said softly. But I won't let her decide who I am. The silence that followed was almost reverent, until Garan laughed again. Then perhaps we should see if she agrees. Before Ro could stop him, Garan reached into his coat and threw something onto the floor. A charm, black stone carved with a crescent mark. The air shifted instantly. The moonlight in the room bent toward it, trembling, alive. Clara gasped as pain lanced through her wrist. The mark there began to glow, silver turning to red. Stop it! Ro shouted, his voice breaking into a growl. But it was too late. The charm pulsed. The bond flared, bright, blinding, violent. Clara dropped to her knees, clutching her chest. She could feel her heartbeat splitting, like her body couldn't contain it. The mark burned like fire. Ro! He was beside her in seconds, his hand over hers, his own mark blazing gold. Hold on. Her vision blurred. It hurts. I know. Then the world went white. When she opened her eyes again, the chamber was gone. She was standing in a field of silver light. The air was weightless, the stars close enough to touch. And in front of her stood a figure made entirely of moonfire. Tall, faceless, endless. Child of the bond, the voice said, deep and distant, echoing inside her skull. You were not chosen. Clara shook her head. I didn't ask to be. Then why carry the mark of kings? Because he gave it, she whispered. And will you keep it, knowing its price? What price? When the sun rises, one heart will break the balance. If love is your strength, it will destroy him. If it is your weakness, it will destroy you. Her tears fell like sparks. No. The moon does not care for no. The light flared, and the field shattered. She woke to Rose's voice shouting her name. Her body was trembling, her skin burning cold. His hands were on her face, his eyes frantic. Clara, look at me. He gasped. The moon, she spoke to me. Rose's throat worked. What did she say? She looked up at him, her voice shaking. That one of us will die for this. The firelight caught the gold in his eyes. Fierce, unflinching, already decided. Then it won't be you, he said. She reached for him, gripping his sleeve. You can't promise that. I just did. And when he pulled her against him, holding her like he could fight destiny itself, she realized that the price wasn't death at all. It was love. Because loving him was already killing her. The moon had grown blood-red. It hung low over Hollow's edge, bleeding light across the mountains like a wound that refused to heal. The wolves howled restlessly through the forest. Not a song of strength, but of fear. They could feel it too. The bond between Clara Hawthorne and Alpha Roe Vale was unraveling the balance that had held the packs together for centuries. And tonight it would break. The wind clawed at the windows of the Alpha's hall, shaking the old wood until the fire guttered low. Clara stood near the hearth, her hands trembling, the mark on her wrist glowing faintly beneath her sleeve. Roe paced the room behind her, his movements sharp, restless. You're burning up, he said. She smiled weakly. You've said that every hour. Because it's true. I'm fine. He stopped. You're not. His voice cracked, low and dangerous, but full of something raw. She turned, and for the first time she saw the truth in his eyes. Fear. Not for himself. For her. He stepped closer. The mark's changing again. Clara looked down. The light beneath her skin had turned darker, from silver to crimson, pulsed in rhythm with the blood moon outside. "She's testing us," Clara whispered. Rose's jaw flexed. "No. She's punishing us." "For what?" "For choosing each other." Outside, the howls grew louder. The guards burst through the door, Alric among them, his armor streaked with ash. "Alpha," he said, breathless. "They've come." Rose's head snapped up. "Who?" "The council. Sable and Garan lead them. They claim the moon demands judgment." Clara felt her stomach twist. "They mean to kill me." Ro drew his blade. "Then they'll try." Alric hesitated. "There are dozens, Ro. You can't." "I can." He turned to Clara. "You'll stay here." Her voice trembled. "No." His golden eyes softened just slightly. "Please." The word disarmed her completely. She had never heard him say it before, not like that. "I'm not hiding while you die for me," she whispered. He stepped close, cupping her face in his hand. His thumb brushed her cheek, and she felt the heat of the mark pulse between them. Wild, desperate, alive. "You're not dying tonight," he said. "Neither are you." For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the space between them. The heat, the breath, the promise neither could keep. Then the first horn sounded. The attack came like a storm. Wolves poured through the trees. Some shifted, some human, all bearing the silver sigils of the council. The night lit with fire as arrows streaked toward the Alpha's hall. Ro met them head-on, his body half-shifted, claws tearing through snow and steel alike. Clara stood at the doorway, her pulse a drumbeat of fear and fury. She could feel him through the bond, every heartbeat, every wound. The pain that hit him flared through her, sharp and electric. She screamed his name. "Clara, stay back." But she didn't. The moon burned above her, and her blood began to glow again, not red this time but white-hot, silver and pure. Her mother's voice echoed faintly in her mind. "When the moon bends to your will, run." She didn't run. She walked into the fire. The world slowed as she crossed the threshold. The light around her pulsed brighter, bending the air itself. Wolves stopped mid-charge. Arrows froze inches from her skin. Ro turned, his eyes widening. "Clara." Her voice carried like wind. "You can't kill what the moon made." Sable stepped forward from the ranks, her white hair glowing in the bloodlight. "The moon made you to end him." Clara shook her head. "No. She made me to choose." The mark on her wrist flared, casting silver light across the snow. The wolves cowered. Even the council stilled. Ro moved toward her, his hand reaching for hers. "Don't." But when their palms met, the world split open. Light burst from their joined hands, searing, beautiful, unstoppable. The snow melted in a circle around them, trees bending, flames dying. The air trembled. Clara felt the bond blaze through her, every emotion, every breath they'd ever shared, every unspoken word. And then she heard the moon's voice again, soft and merciless. One must fall for balance to return. Her body went cold. "No." Rose's grip tightened. What did she say? Tears blurred her vision. "You can't fight it. I've been fighting her all my life. She'll kill you." "Then let her try." The light around them grew unbearable. The wolves fell to their knees. Sable screamed. Garan fled. The forest itself seemed to shatter under the force of it. And in that chaos, Clara saw the truth, the choice she'd been given from the beginning. Love or life. One to save the other. She looked up at him, the man who had marked her not as property, but as equal. The one who had turned her weakness into something the world finally feared. Her voice broke. "I won't let you pay my price." Before he could stop her, she tore her hand from his and pressed her palm against her own heart. The mark flared blinding white, then vanished. The power that filled her rushed outward, burning the air, silencing the storm. Rose shouted her name. The sound was swallowed by light. And then silence. When the glow faded, the battlefield was still. The fires were out. The snow was pure again. Ro knelt in the center, his body trembling. The wolves gathered around him, silent. In his arms Clara lay still. Her mark was gone. Her skin was cold. He pressed his forehead to hers. "Don't do this," he whispered. But she didn't answer. The blood moon began to fade, its red light softening back to silver. And then something strange. The wolves around them bowed, one by one. Not to him but to her. A breeze stirred, carrying the faint scent of roses. Her body glowed faintly, softly. Not death but something like transformation. And Ro understood. The moon hadn't killed her. She had become part of it. Weeks passed. The valley returned to quiet. The council vanished, scattered to the winds. The wolves whispered of a new order, one born not of dominance but devotion. Every night, Ro climbed the ridge to where the moonlight touched the earth. He never prayed. He never spoke. He just looked up at the silver light and felt her there. Warm, steady, eternal. Sometimes the wind carried her voice, soft and teasing, just as it had the first night they met. "You said you don't kneel easily." And though he never bent to kings, to gods, or to fate, every night when the moon rose full, Alpha Ro Vale fell quietly to his knees. Not in surrender. In remembrance. Because in the end, the weak girl who was mocked by her sisters had become what the moon itself could not destroy. Not a curse. Not a Luna. Something greater. The light the wolves would follow for the rest of time. The snow had long since melted from the ridges of Hollow's Edge. The mountains that once echoed with war were now heavy with green and the hum of new life. Where wolves had once spilled blood beneath a red moon, cubs now tumbled through wildflowers. Peace had come. But it had not come easily. For Alpha Ro Vale, peace was not the silence after battle. It was the voice he still heard when the wind moved through the trees. Clara. Every night, her name lived on his lips like a prayer he refused to speak. He ruled as she had taught him to. Not with fear, not with dominance, but with choice. The old ways were gone. The packs that survived the war had sworn to one law now. To serve the balance she gave her life to protect. The world had learned her name. The weak daughter. The human Luna. The one who defied the moon. The one who became it. That evening, Rose stood on the ridge overlooking the valley. The moonlight bled silver through the clouds, painting his scars white. He had grown older, not in body but in weight. There were lines around his eyes now, carved by sleepless nights and things he still could not forgive himself for. Alric approached from behind. "It's starting again," he said quietly. Ro didn't turn. "The rising." Ulrich nodded. "The moon burns brighter every night. The elders think it's a sign." Ro's jaw tightened. "A warning, more likely." "Of what?" He looked up at the light breaking through the clouds. "Of change." Ulrich hesitated. "The wolves still speak her name, you know. They say she watches the packs through you." Ro smiled faintly. "Then she's grown sentimental." "She changed you." Ro exhaled. "She saved me." There's a difference. But deep down he knew it wasn't true. She hadn't just saved him, she had remade him. That night he dreamt. He hadn't dreamed since the night she died. In the dream the world was silver and still. The air smelled of rain and roses, her scent. He turned and she was there. Clara. Standing in the moonlight, her hair pale as frost, her eyes soft as dawn. "Hello again," she said. He froze. "You're not real. Does it matter?" His throat tightened. "I buried you." "I know," she said gently. "You did it beautifully." He wanted to reach for her but couldn't. "Why are you here?" She smiled faintly. "To see what you've built." "I built nothing," he said bitterly. "You did." "No," she stepped closer. "I started something. You finished it." Her fingers brushed the air near his cheek. He felt warmth, faint but real. "The wolves sing again," she said. "Even the moon listens now." He swallowed hard. "I don't want her to listen. I want you back." Her eyes softened. "You have me." "I don't," he said, his voice breaking. "You're gone." Not gone, she whispered. Changed. The light around her flickered, the edges of her body shimmering like mist. Every time you forgive instead of fight, I'm there. Every time a pup is born without a curse in its blood, I'm there. He closed his eyes. You sound like the wind. Then listen harder, she said and smiled. That quiet, knowing smile that had always undone him. Ro, she whispered. The world isn't finished yet. When he opened his eyes, she was gone. But the warmth remained. Dawn came soft and gold. Ro woke with his hand over his heart. The mark that had once burned silver on his wrist was glowing faintly again. Not bright, not painful. Just alive. He stood and stepped outside, the air crisp with morning. The valley below was stirring. Wolves training in the open fields, children laughing near the river, women tending fires. And there, in the very center of it all, stood the new moonstone altar, carved where Clara's body had once rested. He walked to it slowly. The surface shimmered faintly, covered in flowers and old offerings. He laid his hand upon it, feeling the faint thrum of life beneath the stone. I don't know if you can hear me, he said quietly. But the world you wanted, it's here. They remember. The wind stirred through the flowers, carrying her scent again. He smiled. You always did get your way. That night, the moon rose lower than ever before, so close it painted the valley in silver fire. Wolves gathered in the fields, their howls rising in unison, not of grief, but of unity. Ro stood at the ridge watching. When the wind touched his face, he heard her voice again, faint, distant, but unmistakably hers. Do you hear them? He closed his eyes. Always. Then it's time, Ro. Time for what? To rest. He exhaled, the sound trembling. Will I see you again? The wind laughed softly, like the echo of her breath. You never stopped. And for the first time in years, the Alpha of the North smiled. Not the smile of victory, but of surrender. He knelt, as he had the night she died, beneath the moon that bore her name. The light grew warmer, wrapping around him like a hand, like forgiveness. And when dawn came, the ridge was empty, save for two faint marks carved into the stone. One in silver, one in gold, side by side. The wolves said the moon carried them both that night. The Alpha and the Luna reunited, their bond finally balanced, their love remade into light that would never die. And so the story of Clara Hawthorne, the weak daughter mocked by her sisters, ended not in fire or pain or pity, but in peace. Because love, once bound by fate, had become something greater. Not curse, not power, but choice. And from that choice a new world was born. A world that howled not in sorrow, but in gratitude.